Welcome to Speak the Truth in Love. Okay, hold on. Sorry. Okay. Welcome to Speak Truth in Love with Clint Day from St. Simon's Island, Georgia on WCGA 1100 AM, where we do speak the truth in love based on Ephesians 4:15. In today's woke PC culture, there are many forces that want to stop free speech, especially for people of faith. Good men and women must be willing to stand up for their faith and be salt and light to preserve our freedom. True freedom comes from faith in Jesus Christ. In John 8:32, God's word says, the truth will set you free. And today, to my guests out there, I want to just thank you for joining us. And for our guests this afternoon, Murray and Victoria, both from L.A. We have Victoria Scott from L.A., Los Angeles, down in Southern California. We have Murray Edwards from Lower Alabama. And two great patriots for our country, very talented people. Victoria has a salon and a business out in the West Coast and has been active in the radio and podcast business for many, many years, as well as Murray. Murray's very involved with Alabama politics, former businessman, and just doing great things today for both conservative movement and the faith movement, really. And so I'd like to welcome you both today. It's good to have you all here.
Absolute blessing. Thank you.
Happy to be here, Clint. I didn't know you knew what L.A. was also for Lower Alabama.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. It's like my SEC friends. I would argue with them. USC is University of Southern California. They'd say, no, it's University of South Carolina. And I'm like, well,
Absolutely.
I accept
Absolutely.
that. SEC. I know that big Alabama fan you are, Murray. So, but Victoria, tell us a little bit more about your story, if you will. We'll start with you, and why. We started this Newscaster studio. We're very blessed. You're the CEO. You're carrying that forward as part of a major responsibility for what we're doing. And Murray, of course, joined us. But tell us more about your background and why it's important for you that we develop this Newscaster studio.
When I first started out, and I had no idea, and it was just very interesting how I've been able this past week to kind of look back at my life and see a story unfold. And it was mainly because one of my clients came in who I actually was able to attend her wedding up in Monterey years ago and been an active part of her life. And in that, I realized before she was married, when she was just in college, she came to my salon, which I've owned this year for 30 years. And she sat there, and I'll never forget it. And she goes, gosh, I have to tell you this new thing. It's Facebook. Have you ever heard of it? And I was like, at the time, I have no idea what you're talking about. It was early on in the MySpace time. And so I went and did the research on Facebook, which was interesting because I wound up taking a page from my salon, and then Twitter came along, and I wound up getting Long Beach Salon as my handle for the business itself because I was that early on joining the platforms. Well, years later, when my other half wanted to write a book, and in writing this book, developed cancer, and I took care of him, we started doing radio. And I was originally doing blog talk radio with him. We were doing it together. But then he got very sick, so I encouraged him to get off the radio and write a book. So I edit it, and I had it published, and it's been on Amazon and Barnes and Noble since 2013. And the book itself, the reason why I had him write the book is, and that's how I wound up here with the Newscasters. The reason why I had him write the book is because we're both from New York. And I woke up and stood there, and I watched that first plane hit the tower live. And I woke him up screaming. And I actually have his second book that opens up, which I haven't published yet, to him waking up to me screaming about about it being hit the second time. So in that, we went on the radio and we started talking, and the administration and the government became a big part. Lawrence was one of the few Americans that served military in the Navy and in the Army. He was Special Forces, Vietnam era, the whole bit. So he really had something to say as he watched what was happening in our government. And what happened is during the time, it started waking us up to the George Bush, and 9/11 woke us up. But we really didn't jump into the arena and really start researching and critical thinking what was actually going on until the Obama administration. When the Obama administration came in, it was very easy to see that somehow the direction of this country was changing, and we knew that. But at the time, really, nobody wanted to hear what I was saying. I had clients that would say to me, "So you still doing that radio thing?" Yeah, that radio thing is now led me to where I'm sitting with you two gentlemen. Yes, I am doing that radio thing. And what I learned is I learned to be quiet and not to get too much information from people around me as to their thoughts to what I was doing. Because I had done my research and I have a very good relationship with Jesus Christ. And I knew what my calling was. So I pursued it. And Lawrence's life ended, and that was 9 years ago. And I put myself in college to earn a degree in theology. So I could sit here and say, at least I have a degree to say what I say. So
Yes.
the point is that just allowed Jesus to talk to me, to guide me, and to allow me to rely on him only, because I decided right at the beginning of COVID to get my degree, and I did. And my daughter was able to watch me walk at commencement, and the next day there was the opportunity here. I had been with a previous company that had reached its plateau, and I had wonderful people around, and it was in the uniting of our voices here that created the Newscaster studio. And in that, because I truly believe that we have the same vision, our vision is to reunite good, strong American voices that can lead, that can inform, that can inspire, that can give true knowledge. And that's what we're missing. The mainstream media, I remember 10 years ago putting up a post saying, "I am what the mainstream media fears." And I remember putting that up because I knew I had a different way. This was long before. And what happened was when Lawrence told me that he had cancer, I took the dog for a walk and I cried in the streets. And I said, "Father, what am I going to do? Father, what am I going to do?" And he turned around to me and he said, "The computer." And this was right about that Facebook time. And I remember looking up and going, "I don't know the computer." I was so afraid of the computer. If I touched a button, I would lose everything. And I had no idea. He kept saying the computer. That day I wiped my tears and I went home. And that was in 2010. And I wiped my tears and I sat down. And it just so happened that I was given a wonderful gift. I was given the gift to learn social media as it evolved. I was in the beginnings of Facebook and Twitter and everything. I've watched this. I've worked it. I've learned it. That's what was so cool. I didn't realize back then that Father was giving me a wonderful opportunity to learn something that we couldn't even put a price on. Because if I had to go back and pay for the knowledge or learn what it is I know in order to be in the position I am in this company, I don't know if I could do it. It was the patience, it was the hope that I had, which I find my hope to be heart opening with persistent eyes. So that means when my heart and Jesus put something in there for me to do, it is my job to put my eye on what it is and then to persist no matter what. Unless he changes it, I am to persist. And that's why I laugh with people when they say, "Are you doing that radio thing?" Yes, I've owned my salon. I'm still doing the hair thing for 30 years and I'm still doing the radio thing. And that's what brought me here, is that the unity that we found in the foundation of this company is what we are able to offer just America. And not even just America, we could do worldwide. If we have soldiers someplace else, if we have people, we have that opportunity to unite. And that's what I think is the key to our company, gentlemen, is that we are here to unite good, strong voices to somehow help generations that have been given wrong information or filtered information, offering them a place in one place that they can go and they can hear somebody's strength, their hope, and their experience in order to be inspired. That's the mission that I find for this company. And I am honored, and it is absolutely my pleasure. I remember one time sitting here so frustrated and said, "Father, I just want to do this for the rest of my life." And like, here I am.
Amen.
So
Amen.
it's that focus, it's that determination, that focus, I think that we all need to have. And I mean, Murray, you're a prime example. I mean, every time I turn around and I mention one thing, you already have it done. It's that unity, that focus. And every time, even with you, Clint, whenever we come to you, we've got good news to hand to you. And that's pretty good for an early startup company.
It
That the
really is.
bumps in,
Well,
we
and
do a lot
again,
of
you're
things
so,
together.
what yes, what a powerful story. And you're so right. And you've been an inspiration to me by your willingness to overcome a lot of problems and challenges. And you're dealing with a new challenge with your daughter, not new, but it's, some things you have to do, the next step, that is. And it's been an amazing story of how you've overcome a lot of difficulties, a lot of challenges. And I'm just really encouraging by going back to get your theology degree and making straight A's and doing so well in school and just an inspiration, and not allowing an age barrier or a background barrier to stop you from taking to the next level and going where you want to go based on what God is leading you to do. It's a real inspiration. And so we're gonna take a break here in about 30 seconds. And what is, before we do that, Victoria, what is really one thing that you really feel like God's taught you, and try to say it pretty quick if you can, in this process of where you are?
The one thing God has taught me more than anything in this whole wide world is faith. And faith, I find feelings arriving inside the heart. And when my heart can feel that, the one main thing is faith. We've got to believe in something. And I believe when God touches our hearts, all we have to do is follow him, and everything we ever thought we wanted is already laid before us, because he planned this long before we did. So
Amen. That's
faith
a good
is
word.
what I learned most,
Amen.
is to keep a strong, healthy faith.
Amen. Faith in Jesus Christ. That's the key for
Yeah.
sure. So we're going to take a quick break. This is Clint Day from St. Simon's Island. We'll be right back. Okay, we'll go right back in. Welcome back to Speak Truth and Love with Clint Day from St. Simon's Island, Georgia, on WCGA 1100 AM. And I want to encourage you to do the download of their app for WCGA. I also want to encourage you to do the TNS, the Newscaster Studio. We also have an app, and you can go anywhere in the world and listen to that. So I really want to encourage you to do that. Download those apps, please. And of course, if I'd encourage you to subscribe wherever you are, wherever you're listening to us, on YouTube or wherever it is, Spotify. Subscribe to Clint Day, Speak the Truth in Love, and these other programs that we have. So many are great programs on both WCGA and TNS. And Murray, let's hear your story a little bit more. You've got a diverse background. You've done amazing things. You're always encouraging to me how you can take care of that technology, and you're, as a mature man and life, the ability to figure all that stuff out and get things properly posted. It's awesome. So tell us more about your background.
Well, I do have a technical background. I've got a double E that I got many, many, many moons ago. And I started my career actually working on computer systems, the big guys, before they got to be, uh, a lot of people don't understand they have what I used to work on that filled up a room in the palm of their hands now. It's just truly amazing the amount of power that, people have now in the palm of their hands. And then I moved from the engineering side over to the consulting side. I worked in the corporate world. I started off working with companies like Unisys and Sperry and Burroughs and stuff like that. And slowly but surely, I left the big corporate world to a little bit smaller corporate world, in the world of distribution. And in that situation, I was a business consultant for companies all over the country that were trying to build a practice or a model, basically in the technical space, what we used to call computer resellers. They'd buy an IBM box or HP box, but I would go in and help them develop their marketing strategies and their business plans to, hopefully be successful, everywhere from a 1-2 man shop all the way up to organizations like CDW and McKesson and stuff like that. I worked with a whole lot of different groups. And I stepped back and retired back about 8 or 9 years ago. I had a little health scare and got tired of flying all over the countryside, and sort of stepped back a little bit And I had always been involved in politics from day one. And when I retired, the folks I used to deal with in politics started reaching back out and say, "Hey, we need you to get back involved." So I have, and so I've been here in the state of Alabama and some stuff up in Washington. I've gotten involved, but what I learned from the world of working with small businesses, the challenges they face dealing with government,
Mm.
how they would put all these rules and regulations on them, and it cost them so much money, and to basically be able to live up to those regulations. So I got deeper and deeper involved in trying to, I guess, get federal government out of the business world as best we can. And then I started doing some podcasting myself and sort of got hooked up. And eventually, what we've got is what we have here. We have an organization, a company that will allow for people who are want free speech. They want to talk about what's going on with not having to worry about being slammed over the head by somebody saying, "No, you can't say that," or "No, you can't say this." As long as they're honest and frank, and or telling the folks what they need to hear, don't get caught up in the minutia. I mean, they are admittedly there are places where you can put people can put their podcast, but when you start talking about getting lost in the minutia, they can't get any kind of leverage. They can't get a foothold. And what we're building here is a opportunity for people to speak their truths, make sure that what they're talking about is factual and accurate, and not be afraid. You're talking anything from inspiration to taxes to federal government to state government and what's going on. So people will understand that there are voices outside those big mainstream voices, because that's all you ever hear. And when you hear that, you hear snippets. You hear, a minute here, a minute there. But the local, the regional, and the national freelancers that are out there, a lot of times they don't get their voices heard. And the object of why we're building the Newscaster studio is to allow for local folks and regional broadcasters or freelancers and some national folks to be able to share information. And the one thing that we do different than some of the other podcasting platforms, we actually promote our contributors. So if a person puts a show up, he or she's not there alone just trying, well, I got to push it out, I got to push it here. We as an organization push their shows out across all the social media platforms in groups that are like-minded, like retail, like commercial, like podcasting. So our shows, their shows, go out across the airwaves. We've got people that are all over the country, all over the world now. We've got listeners in Europe. We've got listeners down in South America. And we've done this in a very, very short amount of time. I call us, we're out of the cradle now. For the longest kind of time, we were sitting in the cradle, sort of rocking back and forth, going, "Sheesh, what are we going to do now?" Well, we've crawled out of the cradle now, and we're just about into that full walking mode. We still got a few more things we need to do and work on, but we'll continue to make it better for our listeners and to continue to make it better for our contributors. And we just want to move forward in that method.
You're
And
100% correct. And I think about at NPR, I'm sure you saw where that whistleblower came out and he initially got told he can go away for 5 days without pay. And now I see where he's totally resigned from it,
Yeah, did it
admitting that
this
over
morning.
95% of the people at NPR, he finally admitted it because he's a liberal himself, that they were too liberal, too biased, too much against the Hunter Biden computer situation and laptop. And he admitted all that. And then he gets fired for it, for telling the
Yeah,
truth. And I hope and pray that someday someone can get a hold of that NPR and fire a bunch of people there and require it to be 50-50 at least. It is crazy, the biasness of mainstream media. And you see themselves just continually hurting their audiences. Their audiences are going down, down, down. CNN used to be one of the best places to watch the news, and now when you watch it, all it is a beat up Trump station. And it's
That
just incredible how their biasness, it makes it where you just don't even want to watch them. And the lies that come out, and both sides have their spin on everything. I get that and I understand that, but that's why I'm excited about things like WCGA 1100 AM out of Atlanta or out of St. Simon's Island, where you can listen to it if I'm in Atlanta or Nashville with their app, and the same with us with TNS, the Newscaster Studio. With that app, we can listen anywhere we are, and we have incredible programs on there from a station gentleman down in El Paso who's given us an incredible program about
yeah.
the front line of what's going on there. Yeah, we'll see it on Fox News and you hear the report from their perspective, but it's amazing when you got somebody living right there on the border and what their eyes see that the national media, even Fox News, doesn't see at all. And
That's
it's
true.
encouraging to know that there are people out there that are willing to speak the truth, and we want to get the truth out. That's what we want to be about. We don't want to create stories. We don't want to make them up like the media does so many times because of their spin. We just want to tell people the truth. And we need this. It's for such a time as this. The Newscaster Studio has been brought about, and WCGA the same way, for such a time as this, to tell the truth. And so, Victoria, let's go back to that point. What are some important issues that you're seeing in Southern California that the whole nation obviously is concerned about that we really need to try to talk about?
There's really a lot that we're not paying attention to. First off, I think one of the biggest problems that we are facing as a country, number one, is we really do not have the art of debate. We have one radio station that is strictly for one, and we got another radio station. So really, how does that nurture a country? I mean, I have also tried to go to CNN, to MSN, to Morning Joe. I have tried to listen to them, but they're not giving me any information. What they're doing is they're giving me their spin on Donald Trump. And I'm sorry, but at this point, we have generations that are going to suffer terribly for what's happening today. And every time I turn around, it goes all the way back, as I said, with the writing of the book, because the number one thing that always got me that nobody ever asked back then was, could somebody explain to me, gentlemen, do either one of you know as to what President Obama meant by the fundamental transformation of America?
Okay,
You would think
let's take a quick
that
break from
every
that.
person
Can
in the
we can
news
we take
media,
okay? Can we take a quick break? Excuse me on
yeah,
this,
yeah,
and then we'll
yeah,
come back to that point of what is the fundamental change that Obama was talking about when he became
right.
president, and he's still working out to this day. This is Clint
Well,
Day from Speak the Truth and
say,
Love on WCGA. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. All right, we're going to go right back in. Welcome back to Speak Truth and Love with Clint Day from St. Simon's Island, Georgia on WCGA 1100. Again, I want to encourage you to get that 1100 WCGA 1100 app on your phone so you can listen to us anywhere in the country. And I want to encourage you to get the TNS, the Newscaster Studio app, and listen to us anywhere in the country. Let's go back to what you were saying about Obama. We all know in conservative news that we really feel like Obama is really doing what he prophetically said he was going to do, which was serve as president without being the elected guy and doing
isn't that
everything, pulling the strings behind the scenes. All the people that are or most of the people in the Biden administration are old Obama people, and they're carrying out his evil deeds. And they're destroying this country while they're trying to say Trump is a threat to democracy. And of course, we all know we're a republic. We're not a democracy. And you hear him say that, and you get enough people hearing it in the media and people believing it, they'll start parroting those type comments. And they forget, again, we're a republic. We're not a democracy. Democracies are what burn countries down. And that's, with the mob rule if you do that. So let's go back to that. What can we do within our media to fight against that? Murray, I'll go and ask you that question. You're actively involved in politics, but what are other things that we can do to turn the tide?
Well, the biggest thing is we've got to get more people involved. Unfortunately, when it comes to voting and getting a grassroots group of people to get engaged in their communities, and then it moves up into the state level, and then it moves up into the federal level. Unfortunately, they feel like their vote doesn't matter. They feel like the things that they do don't matter anymore, and they've just gotten complacent. We had a runoff yesterday here in the state of Alabama, and the total voter turnout for just under 2 million people was less than 8%.
Oh my
That's
goodness.
terrible. And,
That,
but that's a happening entirely across the world, or across the country, I should say, in different pockets. And
wow.
what the media has been successfully able to do, and I call it words of the day, whatever comes out of the White House, they'll come out with a phrase. And then if you start listening and start watching and start reading some of the press, that phrase is somewhere in their topics. And the big phrase with the race that's on right now is Mr. Trump is going to be he's going to destroy the democracy. And as you're right, Clint, we're not a democracy, we're a constitutional republic. But their form of democracy is not what you'd call a true form of democracy. They have actually eroded down into Marxism and socialism to an extent to where no one can disagree with them. And if you can't have an honest discussion with someone without them yelling and screaming at you and calling you names and giving you tags and things like that, then we've lost that capabilities. And so our First Amendments are being challenged. Our Second Amendments are being challenged. All of them are being challenged, and it's all coming from a select group of elitists. I call them the folks that sit on top of the mountain. They can't understand why the folks down in the valley are so upset at them, because they're not down in the valley and they're not worried about paying $5 for a gallon of gas or $5 for eggs and stuff of this nature. But they keep pumping that jargon, that information that is not accurate, and making it worse basically on the American people. So more folks have got to get involved in the election process. They've also got to get involved with holding their representatives at whatever level accountable, because if they don't, then they're going to walk all over the general public. And that's one thing I work very hard on is educating and informing. People ask me, well, should I do this? How should I do that? I'm not here to help you make up your mind. I'm here to give you the information and the education of the things that are going on, so you can use your own mindset to decide what is good or bad. Phone calls, who should I vote for? I don't know. It's not my position to tell a person who to vote for, but it is my position to educate people on what these individuals stand for so they can make an intelligent decision. And that's part of the problem now, is a certain group of individuals are literally being brainwashed. It's been going on in the colleges now for 20, 25 years through CRT, through DEI, and that group of individuals who now are in the working force. So they don't know any better. They have been told that this person is bad or that group is bad. So when they get into the job force, they now believe it, and now they're trying to bring it down. And some of those folks are in the government. Victoria mentioned Obama. Oh, he was a part of some folks up in Chicago that were some pretty bad folks.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
He was
What
also part of the Cloward Piven strategy.
exactly?
right.
Let's do this. If we could take a quick break, we're going to take
Sure.
another break from WCGA 1100. We'll come right back on those points, and we'll be right back. 2 more 7-minute segments, right?
Okay.
Welcome back to Speak Truth and Love with Clint Day from St. Simons Island, Georgia on WCGA 1100 AM. We're so grateful that you're joining us today. I'm here today with Victoria Scott and Murray Edwards. They have great insights of what's going on in our country and our world. And Victoria, going back to what you were saying about Obama and the challenges, what do you see that we need to do in places like California where there's so much of a one-party system? We had a one-party system when I was in the state Senate in Georgia back in the 90s that had been in power for over 130 years. At the time, it was the longest reigning one-party system in the world. And
Wow.
it was crazy how bad it was when one party rules like that with an iron fist. The justice departments are out of whack, and we see that on the national level too. So how do we turn that tide and get people facing the reality that the liberal left philosophies and programs are really hurting people? They're not helping them.
Right. And you know, it's very interesting. I have a daughter who's 26 years old, and we had breakfast yesterday morning. It's amazing how this generation, who at one time, you know, just give me, buy me, take me, get me, is what they were raised. You know, that was the only question I ever heard was give me, buy
I
me.
think I was at the tail end of that, by the way. But anyway, go ahead.
Right. So so in that, what's happening is, as a 26 years old, she's realizing how fast her life has changed. When she was 21, not that long ago, right? She became of age during the Trump years. So
Mm-hmm.
she saw a little bit of prosperity, mainly because in the 30 years I've owned my business, and I want to go back to what Murray said on the rules, the regulations, and the laws. My business chemically was hit very hard. So the rules and the regulations crippled my business. It wasn't until the Trump administration where I finally got released from the regulations and stuff, where I could breathe in my business, and I made money during those years. So my daughter was growing up during those years, so she was able to have more. It is now that she's hitting the 26 and she's got control of her own life that she's looking at me like, what happened? Like, how come, like, you know, everything she's buying is ridiculous. And you know what I'm saying? And there's no ground for them. But this was perfectly planned, because I truly believe the Obama administration is just fueling and throwing wood right now on the fire and making a very, very big bonfire. And what it's starting to show me is, if you look at the way the prosecution of these mayors and stuff they're doing to Trump, and the corrupt mayoral level is what I'm talking about. So now that we're beginning to see the corruption at the mayoral level, if they keep increasing this division in this country, and if we lose the art of debate, we are only left with violence. And this summer, if something doesn't happen where the American people have some sort of hope or some sort of direction that helps them and doesn't hinder them or make them so full of fear that they just all close their doors and stay home and don't vote at all. So my point is that I do not want it to get to the point. What we need, like Murray said, we need to get people out there, to get people involved, because that's the only way we're going to do it now. We have really lost the timeline that for voting, where we can put good people in that position. All right, so that doesn't work. So now the only way things are going to change is by public opinion. That comes from we the people. And I believe that that's how it is going to change. I think that the Obama administration thinks that enough time has gone by and there is enough woke generation, and our generation, yours and mine, gentlemen, we don't want to be bothered anymore. Well, they are going to underestimate, because when when middle America truly wakes up and realizes exactly what has happened, they are going to take a stand. And that's what this government, I believe, does not get. And that's my biggest fear, is that we will stand for our rights, but they have already changed our rights. So by the time we stand for them, the rules have changed, and they changed them before we knew they were even changed. That's one of my biggest fears. So I believe, like Murray, and I believe, like you, Clint, we were put in this position to give a voice to people who really have something to say to help save the foundation of this country. That's what I truly believe where we're at. I believe it's just going to take us like-minded with good information, because people are just, sometimes I listen in my chair in Long Beach and I'm like, what news are you listening to?
Absolutely.
Google. You don't get your news from Google. That's not a news source. But that's what we're faced with, and that's what people are using as their information, which is not really good
Yeah.
information.
To your point, I was so amazed at the jurors that were put on the Trump case that's in New York right now, on a trumped up, if you will, case that they changed the laws to make them apply to Trump in that situation. But most of them, their news source was like NPR, New York Times, Washington Post. And you're sitting there going, you're telling me they're not biased and they're being on a jury? with Trump. Of course, Trump's lawyers has something to say about it. So hopefully there's some things that are being said that are getting going in the right direction. But anyway, so
But
let's go
then
back.
again,
Let's take a
but
quick break.
but
Take a quick
gentlemen,
break. We need to
yeah.
take a quick break. We'll come right back for our final segment. This is Clint Day with Speak the Truth in Love on WCGA 1100. We'll be right back. All right. We got 7 minutes. All right.
It's all good.
Welcome back to Speak the Truth in Love with Clint Day from St. Simons Island, Georgia. I'm here today with Victoria Scott and Murray Edwards. We have a great discussion about what's going on in our country and what we can do to take it back. And we need to be involved. I mean, people do need to get off their couch and quit. I mean, that's the thing about conservatives. Our main objective is, God and family and living our life, our career. Whereas the other side, they just seem to have more time to do things because they don't have family maybe or things like that. And I'm amazed at where we're going. So again, some more points. What do you want to say, Murray? Let's step right in there. And what are some other things, just knowing we have only a few
Well,
minutes?
the biggest problem I see is they are trying to destroy the family unit. And by doing that, they break it apart to where we'll have to look in places like Chicago and New York where kids are just getting out and ransacking stores and whatnot. Where are their parents? And it's not only happening in the large cities, it's happening down into the smaller towns, smaller jurisdictions and whatnot. They feel like that it's owed to them. Or even heard some person say it's criminal reparations, because they've been treated so bad that they have the right to go in and steal up to $1,000 in a store and not be arrested. Well, that's going to be a huge problem because there's no situation to where they will ever be held accountable. And what's occurring with our border is even worse when we have people here illegally that have hurt people, have murdered people, who have sold drugs. And we have a government at this particular point in time that will not take ownership of any of it. They claim that it's not that it caused by the previous administration. Well, we know that it wasn't. We know all the rules that were in place. We know that they have the power to do, what is supposed to be done. And as Victoria mentioned about the mayors of these cities, you got a situation to where immigrants coming in from Venezuela, they come in and beat the what out of a couple of cops, and they get turned loose, and they find them in other states. So we don't have a official law group, I guess, anymore because they're being shut down. Denver just announced today that they're cutting their police force funding by $8 million to give funds to the immigrants. Now, I'm for immigration as long as it's legal immigration. But you
Absolutely.
can't tell me 12 or 13 million people and 1.5 million that they don't even know who they are roaming around our country, and they won't tell us anything about it. So it's so
It's an invasion.
misleading.
Yeah, it's an invasion. It's not just
Absolutely.
immigrants
And they
coming here.
slammed Texas for doing what they're supposed to do. I was talking
Right.
to somebody in Arizona yesterday. It's just shocking the amount of damage that's going to be done, and people need to understand what is occurring because immigrants are counted in the census.
Yeah.
So when the census comes in some of these states who have lost population, like California, like New York, where people have moved to Texas, to Tennessee, to Alabama, they're flooding those areas. And what kind of person gets elected? That population decides how many representatives or how many senators that state will have. So the more people they have, the more representatives they have. So the voice of, say, the conservative will be wiped out because there'll be an overabundance of liberal Democrats who will be elected. And if when that happens, the country, the Constitution that we believe in, that we support, won't exist anymore.
Absolutely.
And
Well,
that's one of
I
my,
understand California has like 6 congressmen that are a result of illegal immigration. So
Yeah,
that's
and
a lot of people. And that when you think it's about a 5.5 member advantage for Republicans right now, those 6 make a big difference. Go ahead, Victoria.
absolutely.
All right, and it's not. Here's one of my big. The immigration issue and these young men coming in and the violence that's being brought here is one issue, but I also look at this country. I've been owning that salon, like I said, and I've got colleges, elementary, middle school, high schools. They all come each day to the place next door to me in the donut shop. So I've been, and they're very involved as my clients. My point is this: we have desensitized two generations. Have you ever seen, like we see today, where we can see young girls or young boys haul off and walk past somebody and just clothesline them or just hit them? We are going to see the result of violent video games that were meant for our military that we used as entertainment for our children to desensitize them. And now we are seeing the result of a generation that is desensitized to violence. And that's why we have to keep talking and talking louder to try to get their attention, to try to show, to try to change the direction. Because there are many people out there that have the right heart, just don't know, with fear, don't know where to turn. So we have to unite together, speak louder, so we're giving those voices a place that they can feel is where they belong. Because it's a matter of picking sides right now. They've divided our country. If the one thing Mr. Obama did when he left the administration was he perfectly divided this country. That's my true belief.
Well, and of course, that's what the enemy always wants to do. He wants to divide and conquer. I have a
Right.
good friend. His name is Mark. His wife is Leanne. She had some aneurysm surgery this morning. And I know that he has really been pushing into his faith. And I know that we all got to do that in this country. We've got to push into our faith in Jesus Christ. We've got to repent and ask God to turn our nation back around. And I just want to thank you guys for joining me today, Victoria and Murray. It's always a pleasure to be with you. I want to encourage everybody out there, get that WCGA 1100 app, get that TNS, the Newscaster Studio app, put it on your phone so you can listen to us anywhere in the world. And again, I'd like to thank our general audience out there for listening to Speak the Truth in Love with Clint Day on WCGA 1100 AM from St. Simon's Island, Georgia. And remember, every day is a God day.